Hi guys, welcome to Indie Meme and to the 10th Indie Meme Film Festival. We are so excited to be chatting with you. I'm Alka Panot and that's
I'm
Davis.
Davis.
And we're both going to be in conversation with the wonderful filmmakers of back then, the story of live music in Bombay. And I am really happy to welcome Anindita and Abhishek to the theater.
Thank you so much. I hope you all like the film.
Oh, they did. Oh, I mean, it's been a fabulous screening. So I'm gonna, of course, have a billion questions about the film because I grew up in Bombay and have visited many of the featured venues and heard some of the featured artists. But before we do that, love to hear a little bit about the two of you. So tell our audiences, how did you both get into making this movie? I know, Anindita, you have a film background or you've studied film, and Abhishek, you have a music background. So
This the story of back then is pretty much the story of a lot of us who went for gigs in Bombay over the last 20 years or so. I'm just another person who attended all of those things. Nothing very special about me, person with a job and in the evening who likes to go attend these shows. And we were able to put together this film, and we're very excited about that. And we're so happy that it's playing at your end, right? And we've never seen that part of the world. So we're hoping that all of you guys are enjoying the film.
Adding to it, Alka, I still consider to an extent I'm an outsider to Bombay. I moved to Bombay almost 12 years back. And one of the things I discovered was the crazy live music over here. And, growing up while watching like the entire Mumbai being synonymous to Bollywood was always like something which was sacrosanct in my head. But moving to this city and discovering this part of the culture, especially actually I discovered it with Abhishek, that gave me like a different lens to the city. And slowly the entire mainstream thing of Bollywood started drifting away, although as much as I love Bollywood, right, but I started embracing this culture. And there was a day when I felt like, hey, I'm sitting on a pot of stories which I've heard of, like, from so many people from back in the days, and things like that. That sort of gave a trigger that, hey, why not make this as my first feature? Because I have always wanted to make documentaries because of the academic background also I had, and also very I'm very inclined towards journalism and documentary space. So I would say that was the first trigger.
it is such a fabulous archival piece, and it's kind of hits all the marks, and it reminded me of a film I'd seen a long time back, which captured the stories of the really old people living on the border of Punjab. And there were stories they were telling of the time of partition, and I was listening to all of that saying, oh my god, thank god the filmmaker made this, thank god, because we would have we would have lost all of that. Nobody would have known these real stories. And a lot of what you captured was so true, and such few people knew about it. There was truly this underground scene, and in Bombay, in the middle of the city, through the city, and it's very fascinating what you've been able to do. Totally commendable. But also 30 years or 3 decades is what you've kind of covered in the film, is a long period. How do you condense 30 years in less than an hour, which is what you've done? How did you pick your content? Let's start there.
So recently, in fact, I delivered a lecture at a college, XIC, if you would know. And then I was telling the kids about Rang Bhavan, and they had no idea Rang Bhavan is right next to their college. So they were like, "What? This is what where like this all happened?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is right next. This was right next to your college." But essentially, what I wanted to talk about was the process. I spoke about the process of making the film, and I think that will help me sort of summarize the entire experience. The way we went about it is I made a grid, okay, that this is my wish list of the people, of the places. Somehow the places also were characters for me. Like because most of the places you have seen are now it's shut, right? Like they're not running anymore except for antisocial. So there is this personification, the way people would describe those places. So these places became subjects for of my interest. So were few of the people who would talk about some stories and very interesting anecdotes, and of course like avid gig goers like Abhishek and his friends. So I put them down in a grid, and what then I told Abhishek, hey, this is what I want to make. And initially he sort of rejected. He was like, nobody is interested in, saying something like that. But then I told him about, how about, like, think of, like, um, this is the only time we can talk about modern history, like about the subculture, and through this documentary, think from that aspect. And here is the list of people, list of venues we can sort of capture, which are not there anymore, but we can still bring it back and talk about the rich subculture we have. So I think his interest kicked in, and he helped me plot them as per the decades. So we chose a venue, chose a person, chose an avid gig goer, chose an artist as per the decade, and that's how we went on to sort of reaching out to them, recording with them, and then what we were left with was like some 14 hours of content, interviews, and then I think that's when Abhishek sort of took the entire lead of, like, instead of telling the story in a linear manner, how interesting can we make it by. So initially I really wanted to tell the story in probably like a linear manner, that these are the two three things happened in the 90s, and it was not genre agnostic, it was not people agnostic, but he made this entire structure wherein he sort of explained that, hey, like, be it 90s or 2000s or 2010s, like, the genre was always there. Something was lower, something was higher, that's how it played. So somehow, at the edit table and the script table, we sort of we would have heavy debates and conversations, and then we formed the story, and probably Abhishek can add on to the fact that how we went on about depicting these 30 years ahead.
Yeah, sure, sure. To be very honest, this wasn't supposed to be an hour-long feature-length story. This was supposed to be a 10-minute short docu. That's what we began doing when we start on day one. That's what I signed up for as a writer. I said, okay, yeah, this I can do. Maybe 10 minutes, we can figure this out. I don't think I would have stepped in if I would have known it's going to be such a big endeavor. But I think when it once we did our interviews with the 14 subjects that Anindita built a beautiful relationship with, when they were so honest about everything that was happening, and every interview ran for about an hour or two, and so we had maybe 30 hours of content, and then we had eventually found out about 100 hours of archival footage as well. So then we were sitting on something where we were thinking that this could even be a series, or this could be a very overindulgent 6-hour mammoth story if we try to say everything. But I think Annie was very clever in making sure that the team does not go all over the place in terms of steering the ship in the right direction. And a lot of us, while we are the ones who worked on the film, while all of us have a background of enjoying music, loving music, playing music, so it became really difficult for us to not talk about our heroes, right? And because most of the artists that you see on stage, a lot of us consider as our heroes, the ones who inspired us to actually do so many things in life. But saying that, we kept our commercial advertising backgrounds in check to make sure that we are staying within duration, we're staying within making a point, we don't overstate anything more than the obvious. And that framework that Anindita spoke about, that really made a big difference, because that was sort of our blueprint in making sure that every aspect of the every generation is covered from 4 different perspectives, and then it was just about putting it together. So of course the first version of Back Then did not look like the film you guys just saw. It was something else altogether. It was 2 hours long. and it was completely a different story. It didn't even start in the same manner, and it had no ending. But I think it took us 3.5 years to kind of put it together and make sure. So I wouldn't say that we knew exactly what we were doing on day one. I think we figured it out as we went along with it.
It's hard to imagine you like originally thinking that this would be 20 minutes because already it's just so much content in 57 minutes. Like I'm surprised it could even be cut down that much. And I mean, it's a story of music but it's not just musicians who you bring on. And I think that was one thing I loved was it showed the event organizers and the people that would go to this and really just showed the culture that came along in the community in the music scene. And so I'm curious about the editing of it. So not only just cutting down the content, but I mean the visual aspects of editing are just play a huge role in the film. And I'm curious what were like the deciding factors for identifying the visual identity of this film, and just how working together with the whole team went with that to just put it all together into one finished product.
When it comes to the editing, we were blessed with two editors, Swaroop and Madhurima. So one of the criteria we had while making this film, as you would know, it was a completely independent feature film we made, and so a lot of the people who worked on the documentary, although they have their professional life as DOP or editors, but the drive they had towards this documentary was their passion towards music. So that was always the criteria. Whosoever works on this film has to be someone who loves live music, so they can get the entire momentum. That was one. Second, these two people knew that what kind of pace we are talking about. So we were always clear that the pace has to be tight. I did not want a documentary which sort of goes on in a very like a slow pace. So even though we could see that the film is going to surpass those 20 minutes we initially mentioned, and it'll stretch to 1 hour probably or more than that, but the pace cannot be destroyed. It has to be something fast. It has to be something which signifies the pace of the city itself. So that was one. Second, the editors, while working on the visual language of the film, I think the challenge was marrying the decades. So the 90s looked something different, the 2000 again different, the 2010 looked very polished. So how do we sort of have something which sort of sort of transcends across generations? So I'll speak about two things, and probably Abhishek, if you could add on to that. One thing was we sort of designed a language in terms of editing, that something you must have seen a lot of footages which we have used from the past, the archival footages, and then there are these extra polished ones. So we wanted to sort of map something, an edit which doesn't make the 90s look too boring and 2010 look too polished. So we created a semblance through that visual language, where Swaroop sort of built in a lot of VFX and things, so that everything looks very interesting. The second thing, if you have noticed, is in the start of the film, and also whenever the decade is changing, there was this motion where we sort of created an imaginary venue, Rang Bhavan, which is not there anymore. But the artist who designed our poster, I just sort of told him that I want, even though this place doesn't exist, I want you to make something which sort of make people feel very nostalgic the moment they see it. So he made an outline of Rang Bhavan basis the kind of images which are there on the internet from the past, newspaper clips and stuff, and we imagined people around it, and we imagined extended landscape of the city, where the decades, few things are not changing, like the old South Bombay buildings, and then few things which look very dingy, like the streets of the city, and especially outside the live music venues. So those are the two things I feel like uh, became very established and became very prominent by the end of the film, and it sort of also carried forward in the on the edit table as well. Yeah,
You
so
know,
that's how I think. Yeah, please.
Anindita, just to add to what you're saying, there was a huge struggle at our end because the quality of archival content that we found from the mid 90s and the things that are, of course, from this generation, it was so difficult to marry the same footage seamlessly in a lineup because the quality is different, the ratios are different, the size is different. The audio quality of something old is, quite frankly, very terrible. And but those were the things that were the strongest nostalgia hits when we put everything together. So we needed to kind of build, the visual language was very inspired by Bombay itself, and the memory of the places that we had. So even when we spoke to each person, and we would ask them one question about how it felt to be there, and the things that they told us also inspired us in the design story, in the design, putting that together. It was almost like creating a visual look first with the titling that we did for the film. That was actually the first thing that we did. The titling, the typeface that we kind of put together for back then, the story of live music. That was the first thing that we designed, and I think it started from there, and then it went into making sure that we don't have things which are crisp, and we have things that are slightly muted. Everything has a little bit of a washed out feeling to it. When you look at the colors, you look at the imagery, the choices that were made. A lot of things go back to people in their college days or school days, when they're doodling on a book, writing down the name of a band, or just scribbling all over their arms, tattoos before tattoos, those sort of things. All of those pieces became choices that we made. If you see in the art, so in my mind, I think we should be talking a lot about the art. I tell Anindita all the time that we should make a 20-minute video just talking about the art of Facted, because I kind of feel that there's a lot to talk about because the editors have put in so much of time and effort, and some of the things that they've thrown in from a visual language standpoint, we are still discovering every time we watch it. So we're very, very happy with how it came out. And of course, the music is sort of the memory signature that we're trying to build. So we also make sure that while things visually can be treated in a certain manner by brainstorming for a lot of ideas, we wanted to make sure the music is very authentic. So the overall feeling of how the film has come out, the music plays a big role. And a lot of it, I'm sure you might have heard, wasn't very well produced. It was very, in today's terms, very lo-fi. And it was very bass recordings, very, very low-end recordings, people recording things on their home, too much of ambient noise. But we wanted to retain all of those things because we felt that that's the actual aesthetic. Because nothing was perfect in the 90s or in the 2000s. There was a serious edge to all of those things, but we fought through the edge and sat through those shows, even though things didn't sound really great. We wanted to retain that. That imperfection is somewhere kind of hard coded through the film.
And thank God for that. Thank God for retaining it all. I think it really does add so much depth. And you're right. Like, the film isn't a one-time watch. You can do this film again and again, because every time you're discovering new things, because like you said, the detailing and the effort. And so your sound designer, whoever did the music for the film, talk a little bit about that, just because it's a film about music and musicians, and how hard is it then to do like a sound design for a film like that? That's got to be tricky too, because in your particular case, you have an important story to tell. It's an archival kind of movie, so yes, you won't pick your favorites, but still you will have to pick and choose from what is there. You can't have everybody in there. Then your edit is exceptional with oh my God, having to condense it all. But I would think that the music, the sound design of the film is for especially this kind of a film, working with so many different sounds and adding its own authenticity to make it one whole. So a little bit about the sound design process.
So I've mentioned that Annie mentioned that we're a indie project, right? And there's no funding or anything. So originally there was no sound designer. Originally it was just supposed to be me making some choices in terms of what goes where. And we realized that the music that we'll be selecting is already there. There's a lot of songs. There are actually more than 30 songs there in different shapes and sizes across this movie. So it began by putting that together. But when we finally ended up reaching a place in terms of finances where we could have somebody do sound and mix the whole thing for us and build the right kind of atmosphere, we met Zico, who himself is a musician. He has his own band and he's a producer. He does a lot of work in this space, and we were absolutely thrilled that he could join us. The first thing he asked us was, "So you obviously don't want me to make anything for this because there is so much that's already there, and making anything is just going to kind of distract people, right? We should actually play with the ambient sounds." So a lot of the sound design, is real ambient sounds, that sort of like field recordings from gigs through the years. And so that's why you'll hear a lot of chatter. And Anindita says that I want to make sure that the cacophony of all the gigs are there because it has to sound like it was live. It has to sound, and then we used to have a lot of arguments that if this is gonna play in a big screen and on 5.1, this is not gonna sound very good. But I think we were able to kind of, I don't know, at least we think that we did a decent job at it. We hope that you think so too. But field recordings married with existing music, and I think that's how the soundscape kind of came about.
There was this interesting time where the sound mixing and the entire flow, somehow it was not working, and I had basically told Abhishek, you have to look after the sound thing end to end, because technically I'm not sure if I'm the right person, so you will have to lead that bit. Okay, so when Zico was designing it, he had something in mind where how he would approach uh, his films and other documentaries that he worked on. But I think there was a significant statement which Abhishek told him, and after that we got going, which was, I think he mentioned something like, you will have to imagine this film, which is, imagine a film playing at a music festival, and how would you make it sound like, rather than thinking of, like, you are making sound for the film. So I think right after that he was like, oh, that changes the entire landscape, so then I think he got it, and then things started sounding better. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Sorry, Davis.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the music paired with the visuals, and I know in the clubs he was saying a lot of it was paired with the visuals. It really gave that environment that the viewer was there, and I think that's just something incredibly done on your part for making that all come together. And I'm curious, I mean, it's more than appropriate that, I mean, this is an independent film about a lot of independent music. And a lot of these musicians were talking about how they had to kind of DIY things to be able to make a finished product. And you were saying that with the sound design, at least to start, you was kind of had to DIY it to make this finished product. I'm curious what other aspects potentially you had to kind of do, maybe non-traditional filmmaking techniques to make a finished product.
Uh, I mean, the entire process was quite DIY. So I don't know how to put it. Like, Abhishek, you can add, but like, even if I am the filmmaker, like, I would approach at least 10 people in a day to ask them, to give rights to their songs for 15 seconds, and follow up on that every third day. So I became that annoying person on email, and I would, and the fact that most of the people whom we were interviewing were artists, and you would know the temperament of the artist would be very floral in probably in this month. 2 months later it could flip. So I again, like, I felt like I also became an agony aunt through this entire 3 years of filmmaking, while making this film, when the artists were having phases, and I had to sort of stick through it, because it's a relationship I was building with them, because this thing which we have built, it's built together, and they have been very supportive. So feel like, just like I mentioned about myself, there have been the 6 people team members. We have played different characters behind the scenes and try to make things happen and get going. So the one of the executive producers, like Ritvik, he's also my friend. We went to the same college, and his entire life is about shoot. So he would so with the budget constraint and things like we would have, he would ensure that we would get some, the best in class equipment, or some equipment where even if like we are shooting with one angle, we can sort of tackle the fact in the edit room where where you don't really miss the fact that there are no multi-camera setup, so the footages came into play. So I think it was all hands on deck, where we just wanted that what will make us proud by the end of making this film. Like it's almost like making a music video, only it's an hour long. So that's how I think
Yeah.
each one of us treated it for 3 years, and it was a thorough DIY experience.
Yeah, and Davis, your question is very, for us, it's a very loaded question because for the way we see it, right? When we started off this whole thing was supposed to be a zero budget thing. It wasn't supposed to, I don't know. I mean, we're so, we still can't believe that, it just played at Indie Meme because it wasn't supposed to do all of those things. It was supposed to be something that we're doing for the love of it, for the craft of it. So everything that we started with was initially a brainstorming session with Ritvik, our EP, on how do we do this without putting anything out. Uh, how do we film this without locations, because there are no locations that we can kind of afford, and with 14 subjects, that was quite a challenge, just taking this into the floor itself. There were initial thoughts of doing this virtually as a call on Zoom, and then we're actually glad that we didn't do that, because I think that would have made a different product altogether. And so a lot of the there are so many funny instances in terms of the choices we made. Our So Anindita and I are a couple, and our own home features in as the backdrop of some of the interviews, because there wasn't a location to shoot in, and then we just made our house look a little different by arranging a few plants here and there and cheating some lights here and there, those sort of things. So location was a big challenge, because we could probably request somebody to help us with some equipment, but a place is in Bombay, it's very difficult to find a space that's quiet and where we can film. And we couldn't find a quiet place. Our home isn't actually a very quiet place, because it's right in Bombay, right? And everything's noisy. We have to shut all the windows. There's construction happening all the time. There's noise. There's somebody banging a hammer at all places. And the sound design team were the people who were recording. They were really frustrated at that point, because they said, this is not how it's done. And he said, we completely understand that, and we wouldn't do this in this manner if this was a project that's come with any sort of funding. We're doing this in this form because it is what it is, right? And I think the whole team, all 6 people, we all essentially were friends who went to gigs together, and somehow that helped all of us craft solutions and find inventive ways to do this at a shoestring budget, if that's even a thing. And yeah, so lights, locations, sound, a lot of things. And we're very grateful to a lot of the artists who opened up their own homes to us and said, look, you can come home and shoot it over here. My studio room is a little quiet, and that's where I do my recordings. Some of those rooms are just that. It's not places that we could find.
And our shooting was happening right in 2021, when COVID was pretty dominant. So we had to shoot with a lot of restrictions. Even then, the artists were super kind to sort of open up, like not just their homes. There was this one artist, he said that, because of whatever, like the commute issues which we were having within the city, he said, I can open up my grandmother's house in Santa Cruz West for you. So, and he did that. And suddenly there were like 4 of us were there, only 2 of us were allowed to be in the room. So Abhishek would sit with the subject in that one small room along with Ritvik, and I would like be right outside the room because of COVID protocols. And so I mean, we have so many anecdotes to share. Like, like he said, that we utilize our own house in so many ways. And similarly, there is Banuj, who is the journalist, like you must have seen him in the film, and there is Nisha. We we have used their houses in different frames so that it doesn't give the fact that it's the same location, but we have shot across their house. So yeah, I think that's what I mean, it was a thorough DIY experience.
I have to jump in here and say that, like, this, your experience of DIY, and then you see the musicians you're covering on screen who are doing it all, themselves, and it's the making of of this movie makes the whole, what you show on screen, so much more authentic. It's almost like you went through the whole process yourselves, making the film, what your subjects are talking about, having gone through over a long period of time. So very interesting. We didn't start off by telling our audience that actually the two of you are married, and thank you for bringing that up in this answer. This was almost like a COVID child for you guys, right? Like, this is a COVID baby for you, and we can tell by your answers that it really takes a village to to raise the baby. You had amazing, tremendous support, but you guys, like, roughed it out. Everybody took on every and any role needed to make the thing happen. Everybody pretty much worked in the interest of the film. And so talk a little bit, both of you, about what it was like being married to each other and to the project and working on it together. We have screened a film in 2014, which is called Brahmin Bulls, which had a husband-wife team working on it. And, it was very interesting to hear them talk about how they manage things. So yeah, we'd love to hear some of that from you.
So essentially, I always wanted to get started with my documentary journey at some point. I thought that I'll do it probably after, like, when I'm 40, and then I have enough savings and I'll get on to, doing it. But like you said, right, like I sort of utilized the COVID time, and when the thing with me is, if something strikes me, I would like to start exploring it then and there. So I first step was pursuing Abhishek, without even thinking that, hey, we are always in each other's face, like 24/7, and I have to work with this person on this film beyond, like, working for our advertising jobs, what we do in our for our day jobs. So once everything was set, I think, and then the next 3 years, it was pretty difficult in terms of like the space issue itself. Like suddenly, like, there will be mentions about the documentary when I'm probably not in the mindset and I've not thought of, like, a perspective, and similarly vice versa. Like, so there, I remember we would have a lot of fights, and so much so that there was I think Abhishek left our WhatsApp group twice. That's his favorite story, to say that I left this film twice. But it was him quitting on the WhatsApp group, and then I'm like, that's okay, like, we'll get you back. So and a lot of people who know us, like, mutually, they keep on asking us, like, it's so great that you guys made it through, like, because it was such a tough process, and you all stayed in the same house, and protocols and things like that, but you guys are sane and fine. So I think it was a great learning experience for us as partners. It's the first creative project out and out, which is actually like a baby for us, and we have treated it as such. And in the end, we just knew that, we have this policy that we can bend, but we will not break. So that's what we maintained in the night before going to sleep. So I think, yeah, it was a great learning experience, but definitely I need some, like, the next project we work on together, I need some breathing space before that, before we get into it. Abhishek can share
Yeah,
his.
in my mind, I felt like working, living together in startup incubator kind of a space where it's all creative all day, and it's all productive all day. And I thought that's a cool thing to do. Um, but I have learned otherwise, and it's quite a challenging thing. And we had to learn to respect each other's boundaries in terms of building the story. Because I'm the kind of person who once I step into something, I'll just endlessly be there. It's very difficult for me to come out of that that the swell of what the creative process gives you, right? And Anindita is very good at managing time, and I'm horrible at it. And so those were moments of friction that used to have that would happen at so many points of time. And the rest of the team that we're working with, working virtually, also made sure that we needed to have our own space. So a lot of times I would go on a quest with somebody else in the team, and we would start working on one part of the film while Anandita is completely doing another piece, because she would focus a lot on the design and I would focus a lot on um, making the cuts, things that we can
Yeah, that
eliminate, and
was
so on
a
and so
proper
forth.
saving grace. Like, working with friends, they sort of understood, like, probably one person needs to work with Abhishek on some one corner, and like I'll need to do the same thing with someone else. So that sort of helped us also working together in the long run.
People tell us that now that we've gone through this whole journey, which is a 3.5 year long thing, this of putting this piece together, they say that we'll be able to do a lot more. We're not sure, like Ananta mentioned, if we want to do a lot more together immediately. I think we put a speed breaker in between. But it's been a very interesting process where I think we pushed ourselves to the edges of sanity at some clear points in terms of building the project, because it's born out of passion. There's absolutely no other reason why we would do this if it wasn't for Anita's love for cinema and my love for everything that's music. And I think we were able to kind of put that together and make a movie about music. So we're really happy with that.
Well, we're glad you made it through. And I mean, just ended with such an amazing final film. And I mean, I'm just surprised. I feel like you guys would just want to be quitting your day jobs, going full-time filmmakers at this point. But I'm curious, I mean, maybe with a little bit of a breather in between, what I mean, if you have any ideas for a next project and what you're thinking about for that.
So with me, I have already, like, we are at a very early pre-production stage. I'm working with two of the people I know in the industry, and we are working on a non-fiction project. Again, I've taken a um, subject which is very subculture to this continent, and uh, I mean, I really can't speak much about it because we are at a very early stage, but this piece will be about, like something which is very inherent to the country, and we are just delving into the research bit of it. And my aim also is to produce a short fiction, at least to try my hands and see how I go about it, and if I'm successful in it. That's my goal with the next two projects, which I'm working on.
And fortunately, I'm not very enterprising in terms of crafting ideas. So whenever Anandita comes up with a great thing, I'm usually around to help out. And I'm actually requesting her to let me in on that fiction thing, because I think that's a space that I would like to kind of explore myself as well, and kind of improve the writing skill, because none of us are formally trained. I mean, I'm not formally trained on any of these things. It's more of doing and learning. So I would love to do more. But yeah, thankfully, I don't cook up my own projects.
We are so glad you guys cooked up this one together, really. I mean, and I think there could not have been anybody else doing this movie, and especially as wonderfully as it's been made, except the two of you. So you did an awesome job. We are all grateful. I loved watching the movie, and I think I remembered my sordid stories of Raz Rhino and so many other places, and so I know my generation would be very, very grateful that they got an opportunity to relive those good old days. I'm curious, because of so much footage and so many people, was there something that got left out of this movie that now, after you watched it a bunch of times, you feel like that one we should have left it in? Or are you just so perfectly happy?
To tell you honestly, I don't think we would have ever finished it at 100%. So we took a call because thanks to a film festival submission, which pushed us to put a full stop to it, and we were like, this is great. Looking back, and now on social media, there are a lot of these stories around live music and history and things keep floating around. So I do see like one or two aspects which we have not covered, but I don't feel like it needed to be told in that aspect. So for now, yeah, I don't think that there is some aspect which I could have touched upon. Yeah, maybe if COVID was not there, I would have loved to capture these artists actually playing on the stage, or like in that environment. But that wasn't that. I mean, it was not possible. And even after COVID was lifted, it took few months to get back into the full swing of live music, where these artists went back into playing, or like the event curators would go back into programming. So that's the only thing I feel like could have been added.
It's not to say that we believe that what we've done is perfect. We're 100% sure that we've missed a lot of things that may have happened in the city. But we had one filter that was to talk about things that aren't really spoken of, because there might be people who are known for a lot of things. There might be bigger names who are associated with music in Bombay, underground music in Bombay. Perhaps there would be songs that were very important to a certain time, but we weren't thinking of making sure that everything that's already known is spoken of. We were trying to ensure that the people we feel who genuinely are those misfits who added a delta to the world in Bombay, like the guys in Control Alt Delete, Himanshu and Nikhil, who did a wonderful job of changing the landscape for this generation in terms of what kind of music is performed on stage. Because some of the artists that play over there in that festival, just, I mean, so wonderful. Those kind of musicians wouldn't really ever have a stage, uh, and they it comes out in their passion, right? So we wanted to make sure that people like people like Sohail from Krunk, the guys who've been pushing the bass music electronic scene since the late 2000s, people who really deserve to to be known, are the ones that we kind of work with. Because we had a lot of people who told us that you should talk to this person who's the MD and founder of that thing and this one, and talk to these money guys and talk to those guys. We wanted to make sure that we don't talk to any of those guys, the ones who already have a platform. And we wanted to make sure that what we do is really about the music scene, and that's actually the way we wanted to kind of run it. So even when the first 100 people who saw the documentary were the people who are from the music world in Bombay. And though we wanted to keep it exactly like that. And we wanted to make sure that it's some people are friends, and some people have now fortunately become friends through the process and all of those things. And some of my heroes have become my friends. I'm very excited about that, changing those kind of things. So we wanted to make sure that we uh, we do that and use that as an angle. The only thing we would have probably done differently would be, like Anindita mentioned, try to show their stories with a bit more depth in terms of their real world, where all this is happening. because at that point of time, when we were filming, there was this looming fear that all of us had, whether it was the artists or the people putting on the shows, that maybe it may never happen again. And that fear kind of made sure that we make this film. And I think that's the way we look at it. I don't know if I think I feel like I rambled a little bit towards the end, but I hope you understand what we're trying to say.
We do. We're glad you shared that. And, that was generally the sentiment throughout the world. You didn't know what the new world was going to be like. You didn't know what was coming back or what was gone forever or lost forever. So yeah, with that, Davis and I want to say thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been lovely talking to you. I know I can talk to you forever. I hope to meet you in person sometime. Whether we're in this part of the world or the other, but delighted to be in conversation with you today.
Yes, thank you both so much. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Alka and
much for having
Davis,
us.
if you both don't mind, can I share my screen and show you something?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So since Davis asked this question, so I'm just very excited to show it. This is very like not put together properly, but I just wanted to talk about the inspiration we had taken, while making the visual language of the film beyond the footages. So it's inspired from a lot of cities which are known for like the nightlife, and Bombay is one of them. However, we didn't want to go to the very extreme. So and this, what you see was the concept sketch the artist sort of developed as per the vision we had. And initially things were not working, we wanted to transcend, and this is what you see was developed further into a more grander view. But this venue particularly is Rang Bhavan, which I have never seen in my life. But people have spoken a lot about this Rang Bhavan, which is shut due to, because that entire fact of rock music being too loud, and ultimately the things festival shut down, the venue also shut down, and it's all forest over there. So but we sort of imagined it, and we brought together a few aspects of Bombay, the sea, the buildings, the old buildings of Bombay, and we sort of created, and then we added a color of something in the night. If you step out even at 2 a.m. in the city, you will feel like probably it is closer to the daytime. There is
Bombay
a,
has this orange glow in the night sky. It's never dark
yeah.
in our
So we
city.
wanted to bring that bit. It's not like as red and blue too much like Hong Kong, but it has this blue and orange tinge, and then that's we sort of put together everything and put it in our key visual, like the poster, and further in the film. Whenever the decade was changing, this was developing into a grander. I hope like people got it, but this was like one of the thinking behind the visual language we had. Then like the footages I mentioned, like the kind of treatment we would have, so that like people are also interested in looking at the lo-fi footages. So that's what I just wanted to take a moment and speak about it, because people who have worked on the film have put in a lot of effort. Yeah,
This is such a treat to be able to see the, I guess, beginning stages of the concept of everything. That's, yeah, just so humbling almost just to see.
Me too. Thank you for sharing. This is such a treat. This is like truly we got to go behind the scenes. This is amazing. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
thank you.